This is a special message to all of you men at the Arkansas Men's Gathering and to anyone else who wants to listen in. I'm so sorry I can't be with you this year. I've been there several times and it's always a great event, a good time to get to know one another, and a good time to get to know more about Jesus. If I were with you this year, and I can't be, the reason why I can't be is I've got too many kids, got 5. I've got too many grandchildren, they're 14 and the 15th's on his way. And 3 of those grandchildren, the youngest 3, were born on the same day, April 28th. And this weekend's the big party. Well, I've been able to get away with it when they're babies. They didn't know any better. But the parents are starting to get a little crusty about it. And the kids are growing up and saying, why is it that Papa isn't at any of our parties? It's not going over well. So I've got to stay here. As soon as I finish that, I'm flying out to D.C. to have a meeting with some people from the Vatican. And they want to talk about Jesus. They've been reading things that I've been writing. They love it. They want more articulation about just Jesus. They're not looking to make anybody or convert anybody to be Catholic or anything like that. It's just, I'm so excited I can hardly stand it. But I can't be with you because of all of that. But if I were to be with you, I would share something that I'm going to share with you right now. I've written about it, but I'd like to share it just with you, some thoughts I've been having. Who is this Jesus? What makes him so unique? In the business world, we'd call it, what are the key success factors of Jesus and knowing him and trying to follow him? I would say the 4 key success factors of knowing Jesus and following him are these. Number 1, Jesus is the gospel. He's the good news. I've talked to so many people, asked them what the gospel is, and they've got a zillion ideas and a zillion ways to articulate what the gospel is, all of it religious rigmarole. Jesus is the gospel. He's the good news. He's the good news in this bad news world. He's the only one who sets the bar so high, the only one that walked the walk and followed his own advice by living it out. We've seen it with Mahatma Gandhi. We've seen it with the Dalai Lama. They love Jesus. They follow him in a certain way, and they do it in such a way that they are like Jesus, a lot of them. Pope Francis right now, he is so articulate about Jesus and is living out how Jesus would live it out. It's pretty exciting, but Jesus is something else. Jesus is the good news. Jesus is the gospel. You don't need anything else, just Jesus. Simply Jesus. Now, I've told you that before. You've heard that before, but that's where I'd start. The second thing I've come to is that Jesus is universal. He'll work with anybody. He'll work with every denomination. He'll work with every religion. He'll work with non-religions. He'll work with anyone. Jesus is the gospel. He's the good news. And he's universal. He'll work with anyone. Now, I'm not saying all religious roads or all roads lead to Jesus. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that Jesus leads to all roads. And he is interested in working with everybody. Even if you're an atheist, it doesn't matter. He's looking for people who have ears to hear and eyes to see that they might be leaning in a bit. He wants to work with you. Anyone that wants to go to be with him for eternity can. I'm convinced of that. There's no hurdle to jump through. I was just with a man who was dying. He's a man I've known for years, professed atheist, very bright guy. We've had some amazing conversations. I couldn't get him to the agnostic position like I do a lot of times. But about a year ago, he started thinking himself as an agnostic and not an atheist. And then on his deathbed, I was right next to him. His wife's on the other side. And she said, now, Ken, you do believe in Jesus, don't you? And he looked at her for the longest time. And then finally he went like this. He shook his head, yes. Well, it was a very uncomfortable moment. And I know him pretty well. And I said, well, Ken, let me say something. I touched him on the arm. I said, I know you pretty well. I think you're stumbling over this word believe, aren't you? He looked at me and smiled and he said, yes. I said, you know, let me ask you this. Do you think that Jesus may be the best person, the most unique person ever in the world? Absolutely. I said, do you believe that maybe, I didn't say believe, I had to stay away from that, but do you think that maybe this Jesus could be the only way out of this life alive? He shook his head again, yes. I said, well, let me ask you this. Let's throw out the word believe. That's a religious term to you. That's something you've run from your whole life. Can you embrace Jesus? Can you hang on to Jesus in such a way that you say, this is my best shot to get out of here alive. This is my best shot to turn my life around the way I want it to be and the way I want it to end up. Can you embrace Jesus and grab hold of him in your own heart of hearts? Does that make sense to you? Biggest smile came across his face. And he nodded with great enthusiasm and said, yes, it does. He died a few days later. This man, I'm convinced, understood Jesus is the gospel. He's the good news in a bad news world. He's the only way out of here alive. And he's for anybody. I'm convinced Ken understood how to grab hold of Jesus. We get hung up on the words. Jesus is the Word. He's the living Word. He's the only thing that matters. He's the only filter, the only bar, the only one to follow. Jesus is the gospel. Jesus is universal. The third thing is Jesus is love. Ask anyone, what is the message of Jesus? I would say that 90% of the time, maybe 100%, most people would say it's love. It's to love one another. And they're absolutely right. Jesus is love. Everything about him is love. He went to the disenfranchised, the poor. He went to the needy. He reached out to people that other people had kind of pushed aside. He didn't have a real good thing to say about a lot of the religious people because they were showing off. He was looking for people's hearts. He loved people. He also, when he was asked what the greatest commandment is, he said, love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and body, and love your neighbors yourself. He put them both together. Now that's big time. He's known as the lover, the one who teaches about love, that's for sure. However, he took it a little further. When the disciples gathered together, these guys, they were a motley crew for sure. And they came together following Jesus. They wanted to be with Jesus. And then he said, I got a new commandment for you. Why did he say that? Because they'd never thought about it this way. He said, I want you to love one another. I wish I could have been in that room to look and see and feel what was going on around that room. Here are the fishermen. Here's the zealot, the radical guy. He's always shooting slingshots at Roman soldiers. He got all kinds of people with all kinds of agendas. And he wants them to love one another. Are you serious, Jesus? We didn't sign on for this. Then he took it a little further. He said, do you want to know how to get rid of your enemies? Well, they're all pretty eager about that. He said, love them. Do good for them. Pray for them. Love your enemies. Are you kidding me? You see, Jesus is love. He's the only one I know that consistently can give a sense of love to you and to me, knowing us as well as he does, and loving us the best. He didn't want more love in the world. That's not the point. He wanted us to be activated lovers. Not more love, but to be lovers. That's the need in the world. Jesus is the gospel, the good news. Jesus is universal. He's for everyone. And Jesus is love. And I think you can buy those three. Those are easy to share. Those are three of the four success factors of who Jesus is. There's a fourth. And the fourth is that Jesus is unity. When Jesus prayed, his real prayer, not the Lord's Prayer that we pray, but the real prayer when he prayed to the Father, he prayed basically in John 17, he prayed to the Father something that was very, very important. He prayed, he said, Father, I pray that just as you and I are one, I and you and me, may all those who follow me be in us and be in unity together. May they all be one. That's what he's looking for. Now, here's someone that's praying, Jesus, praying that all his followers might be one. What's the problem with the followers of Jesus today? We're divided and divisive. We're competing with one another. These people they don't believe the same way I do. Jesus is the great uniter. Jesus unites. Everything else tends to divide. Once you try to organize something around Jesus, it divides. Anytime you try to add something, it divides. Jesus prays for us to be one. Throw your prejudices leave them out at the door. When you come into a meeting with people that you're not in agreement with most of the time, come together and learn to love them. Learn to be one in Jesus. Make that your dividing line. Not whether you're a pre-tribulation rapturist or a mid-tribulation or a post-trib. It's going to all end up okay in the end. It'll pan out in the end. I call it the pan-trib. It's going to pan out. Jesus is going to come back when he comes back. And you're not going to know ahead of time. He's going to know. He's going to take care of that. Jesus is the gospel. Jesus is universal. Jesus is love. And Jesus is unity. Those are the four key success factors of following Jesus. I'd put it the same way I've said to you, I think, every time I've ever been with you. I've come to realize that Jesus alone is enough. He's the only filter I need to see other people, to see myself, to see God. He's the only filter I need. He's the only person that has that bar so high and yet wants me to win. He wants me to follow him, and he believes in me that I can. That's what blows me away. Jesus alone is enough. Jesus plus anything is nothing. Jesus plus nothing is everything. Jesus. Simply Jesus. That's why I wrote simply enough. Jesus plus nothing. I hope you enjoy this weekend. Put up with Herlocker. Laugh at Cassiday's jokes, even though you've heard them before. Go along with it. Love them too. And have a great time. Hope to see you next year. Or maybe before.